organ donation is important to everyone who can be organ donor and for everyone who is waiting for transplant, as organ transplantation is life-saving treatment for patients with end-stage organ failure, but organ donation is essential prerequisite for transplantation. The decision to donate our own organs requires first information, then careful consideration, and finally a personal decision. An organ can be donated by a living donor, primarily a kidney or a part of a liver, which occurs mainly if the potential donor knows the patient in need of an organ transplant. But in some countries, an organ can also be donated to an unknown patient by altruistic donors. It is a much bigger challenge if the possibility of organ donation arises in the case of death, as this could potentially reach everyone. That is why we are calling everyone today to decide. Your decision is also important. A deceased donor can save the lives of up to 6 people, as 2 kidneys, a liver, a heart, a lung, a pancreas, or rarely small bowel can also be transplanted. Organ donation from a deceased occurs in most cases from heart-beating brain-dead donors, in which the blood supply to the brain ceases due to devastating brain injury, and in the absence of oxygen and nutrients, the brain's functions stop permanently and irreversibly. The spontaneous breathing also stops, which can be replaced by mechanical respirator, but a lack of spontaneous breathing and brainstem reflexes that confirm the missing brain function can be verified by relatively simple and completely safe tests. Brain damage leading to brain death always occurs suddenly and unexpectedly. In such cases, the first goal is always to save the patient's life, which requires the highest level intensive care treatment, but in the case of brain death, death must be identified and declared. Organ donation only takes place after death, beside clear medical and legal conditions. It is important to emphasize that organ donation may be performed not only in the case of brain death, but also after circulatory death, which increases the possibility of donation for those who have decided to do so. Basically, one of the 2 approaches is used to regulate organ donation from a deceased in European countries or worldwide. The principle of presumed consent is more widespread in Europe, in which case the law assumes that all citizens will support the donation of their own organs for transplantation purposes in the event of their death. But in order to respect the free decision of individuals, a regulated and traceable possibility to express a protest must also be provided. In such a case, a method and formal requirements of the objection are regulated, like written statement or opting out registry. According to the principle of presumed consent, in the absence of objection, the deceased's consent must be presumed. Another legislative approach in fewer countries is the principle of positive consent or informed consent, in which the law assumes that everyone would object to the donation of their own organs in the event of their death until they have given their consent to the contrary. In this case, it is also necessary to ensure that the consent of the individuals are recorded and can be found in a register, or otherwise to ensure that the personal consent can be traced, for example with donor card. Beside the legal principles, the involvement of the closest relatives of the deceased potential donor to the organ donation decision as defined by law or applied in practice varies greatly from country to country. There are countries which use the hard type of presumed consent, where a donation can take place in the absence of an objection, regardless of the family member's opinion. In other countries, where the principle of positive consent is applied, despite the consent of the donor in his or her life, the donation may fail if the family protests. The details of regulation vary widely across Europe, but we only need to know and respect the rules that are applied where we live. All laws and practices are fundamentally determined by our human values and characteristics. Helpfulness and solidarity with our fellow human beings are important parts of them. Because of our fundamental right to self-determination, we must make a personal decision about our own organs after death, which is why the decision to donate organs is not just an option, but an individual personal responsibility for all of us. Due to the above mentioned, I ask everyone for two things now. Make a decision on the donation of our own organs after our death, and share our decision with our family members. Your decision is also important, as you can save life. Let's talk about organ donation.